would you do if a mysterious bus appeared at 2 a.m. every night with no driver, no license plate, and only one rule? Once you board, you never come back. The Last Bus Ride is a chilling horror story that will take you deep into the heart of fear, memory, and the price of forgetting. In this terrifying tale, follow Evelyn Harrow as she uncovers the truth behind a cursed route that preys on the lost and the guilty. With every stop, something is waiting. If you love unsettling stories with slow-burning dread and psychological twists, don't miss this haunting adaptation. Subscribe now to never miss another nightmare, and ring the bell so you don't miss your stop. It began with a whisper, not the kind that came from lips, but from the air itself. A low, breathy murmur that slipped into Evelyn's ears as she trudged home through the damp silence of the sleeping city. The whisper didn't form words, not at first. Just sound, thin and cold and wrong. Her boots clicked on the cracked pavement, echoing louder than they should have. The city was unusually quiet, even for 1:50 a.m. No cars, no distant sirens, not even the wind. Just her footsteps and that whisper. Evelyn worked the night shift at St. Cecilia's Hospital. Tonight had been worse than usual. A John Doe bled out in the ER, eyes wide with something not fear, but recognition. He kept muttering one thing before the flatline. "Don't get on." No one could get a name from him. No ID, no phone. Just a bus ticket clutched in his cold hand. Evelyn had only caught a glimpse of it before the nurse pocketed it for evidence. It was old-fashioned, thick paper, yellowed edges. The time printed was 2:00 a.m. She turned down East Hollow Street, a shortcut she'd used 100 times, but tonight it felt different. The street lamps flickered violently, casting erratic shadows on the broken sidewalk. One of them buzzed above her, loud like an insect trapped in glass, then exploded in a burst of sparks, and then she saw it. Parked at the end of the street, half shrouded in fog, was a bus. Its shape loomed like a monument, impossibly still. A single interior light glowed a sickly amber, casting long shadows through the windows. The bus had no license plate, no route number, no company logo. Nothing, just matte black metal, and a set of doors that hissed open as she approached. She froze. The interior was empty, no driver. Yet the engine purred softly, steady and smooth. She stepped closer, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. There was no sound now except the engine and something beneath it, a low, rhythmic thump, like a heartbeat beneath the steel. Evelyn blinked. A man was inside, sitting 2 rows from the back. She could have sworn the bus had been empty. He stared forward, unmoving, his face obscured in shadow. His presence felt wrong. Not threatening exactly, but off, as if he wasn't quite there. She checked her phone. 1:58 a.m. The bus doors remained open. The engine didn't waver. And the whisper came again, louder now, rising from the shadows behind her, or inside her. Get on. She backed away, clutching her coat tight. Another figure appeared inside. This one, a woman, elderly, her face pale and stiff like wax, eyes wide and glassy. She turned her head slowly toward Evelyn. Her mouth opened. The whisper became a scream. Silent, soundless, yet it rattled Evelyn's bones. She stumbled backward. The doors hissed shut. The bus began to move, slowly at first, then with unnatural speed. No tires screeched, no lights flashed. It glided forward into the fog, vanishing around the corner. Silence returned. Evelyn stood frozen in the street. Breath catching in ragged bursts, her phone screen glowed. 2:00 a.m. Behind her, something tapped. Tap, tap, tap. She turned. Nothing there, except an old paper ticket on the sidewalk, still warm to the touch. She picked it up. No name, no destination, just time, 2 a.m., and printed across the bottom in faint, fading ink, no returns. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back on East Hollow Street, watching the bus glide into darkness, hearing the whisper, feeling that rhythmic thump beneath her feet. At dawn, she searched online for anything: news stories, urban legends, reports of ghost buses. Nothing solid, just a few scattered forum posts. Saw a black bus at 2 a.m., no driver, woke up with a bloody nose. The previous time, my brother vanished after taking the 2 a.m. route. Police say it doesn't exist. I was on it once, got off before it turned. Never slept right again. Evelyn bookmarked every post. She began carrying the ticket with her, tucked into the pages of a journal. She wrote down the time, the place, the weather, anything she could recall. Obsession bloomed in silence. She couldn't let it go, not after what she saw next. 3 nights later, walking home the same route, same hour. The whisper returned. The fog was thicker, the air colder, and the bus was waiting again. This time, someone was standing outside it. A boy, maybe 17, wide-eyed and shivering. He looked at Evelyn, then back at the open doors. "I don't want to get on," he said, voice trembling. "Then don't," she whispered. "But they know my name." Before she could respond, the boy took a step forward. The whisper grew deafening. Evelyn tried to reach for him, but her legs wouldn't move. The boy climbed aboard. The doors slammed shut. The bus vanished into the mist again. And Evelyn screamed, not with fear, but rage. Because this time she saw the driver. Just for a moment, it looked like the John Doe from the hospital. Only his face was no longer human. It was stretched and sunken, eyes hollow, mouth grinning too wide. She remembered the last thing he'd said, "Don't get on." But she would. She had to. Next time, she would be ready. Evelyn began timing her life by the minute. She no longer walked home at random. She paced her exit from the hospital, counted red lights, knew which doors creaked and which ones didn't. Her entire schedule funneled toward a singular purpose: to arrive at East Hollow Street at 1:59 a.m. Not a second before, not a second after. It had been 4 nights since she last saw the bus, and it haunted her. Every shift at the hospital blurred into background noise. Patients came and went, some screaming, some still. She wrote down their words, searched their eyes for meaning. Nothing mattered, unless it connected to the bus. That night, she left her post early. Her palms sweated as she clutched her bag, the old ticket safely tucked into a side pocket. She'd studied it every night. The paper had aged more in her possession. Creases deepened, the edges browned, as though time moved faster inside it. Outside, the streets were quiet again. The air was heavy with static. Each step she took seemed to echo too long, as if the city had been hollowed out. Even the streetlights buzzed slower. 1:47 a.m. Evelyn's breath clouded in front of her, fogging in the still air. It wasn't cold enough for that, not really, but the mist crept in all the same. It coiled at her ankles, slithered between her legs like something alive. 1:52 a.m. She turned the corner onto East Hollow Street. Nothing yet. The street stretched ahead, shadows draped like curtains. She moved slower, her heart sinking with every footfall. The fog had thickened to the point of blindness. Shapes shifted within it, flickers of silhouettes that dissolved when looked at directly. 1:57 a.m. She stopped at the exact spot where she'd seen the bus before. She waited, her ears strained in the silence, and then it came, a low hum, soft at first, barely there. The kind of sound you feel in your teeth before you hear it in your ears. Then the engine noise returned, mechanical, hollow, familiar. The fog parted. The black bus slid into view like a coffin on wheels. Its lights were dim, the kind of glow that revealed nothing but hinted at everything. The doors hissed open, and the whisper followed. Come back. This time, Evelyn stepped forward. Not onto the bus, not yet. Just close enough to peer inside. No driver, no passengers, but the same rows of seats, clean and pristine, like they'd never been touched, or had been cleaned obsessively, blood scrubbed and memory wiped. A faint ding echoed from somewhere deep in the bus. It didn't sound like a chime, more like a bell struck underwater. She glanced around, hesitant. Her fingers trembled. 1:59 a.m. Still no one else, still no wind. She stepped up onto the first stair, heart thundering, when a scream shattered the silence. It wasn't hers. It came from inside the bus. Sharp, sudden, human. She leapt back. The sound stopped. Her breathing grew ragged, ears ringing. The doors remained open, yawning like a mouth ready to consume. And then a shadow moved. At the far end of the aisle, a figure stepped into view. Evelyn's stomach dropped. It was the boy. The same boy who had gotten on 3 nights before, the one who said they knew his name. Only now, he wasn't the same. His clothes were torn in odd, surgical lines. His eyes were vacant, completely white. His mouth hung open unnaturally wide, as though something had unhinged him from the inside out. He pointed at her. Then, in a voice made of static and ash, he said, "It's not just a ride, it's a return." Then his body crumpled into ash. No wind carried it away. The ash just hovered, suspended mid-air, then dissolved like mist. Evelyn couldn't breathe. She staggered backward, eyes wide, chest burning. The engine roared. The bus began to move. She reached forward, but the fog pushed her back, dense like a wall. Her fingers barely grazed the doorframe before it sealed shut. Through the window, she saw them. Not one, not two, dozens, faces in every window now, pressed against the glass, silent, staring. Pale hands smearing something dark along the inside. One face caught her attention. A woman, mid-30s, wide-eyed, lips moving. Evelyn read them. "You were supposed to come with me." The bus turned the corner and vanished again. And then time stopped, literally. Evelyn checked her phone. 2 o'clock in the morning. The numbers didn't change. The clock froze. Her breath hung still. The entire world locked into a single second, until a new sound snapped the silence. Click, click, click. Behind her, she turned slowly. A payphone, one of the last remaining in the city, long dead, covered in grime, useless. It rang. The shrill sound cut through her spine like a blade. It rang again. She approached, hand shaking, fingers hovering over the receiver. On the fifth ring, she picked it up. She didn't say anything. Neither did the voice on the other end. But she heard it, breathing, wet, guttural. And beneath it, wheels turning, gravel crunching, doors hissing. Then a whisper, softer than thought. "You missed your ride. We'll send another." The line went dead. The phone burst into flame in her hand. She dropped it, skin untouched, but the sound of fire hissed into the air. Then everything returned to normal. A dog barked in the distance. A car drove by. The streetlight above her flickered, buzzing softly. Her phone ticked forward. 2:01 a.m. She was back in the world, but the world had changed. Or maybe she had. Evelyn backed away from the phone booth. Her breath ragged, her skin clammy. She looked around. No one had seen it. No one ever saw it. She walked home in silence, the whisper now embedded deep in her mind. Each tick of the clock brought her closer to something. A time, a place, a decision. And somewhere, the next bus was already on its way. Evelyn hadn't slept in 2 nights. Sleep brought dreams. And the dreams, they weren't dreams anymore. They were memories she didn't own. A moving vehicle, cold air that smelled like rust and wet carpet, a row of seats where the passengers didn't blink, the hum of an engine that never needed fuel. In her mind, she sat in the first row, staring at the large steering wheel that turned on its own. And in every dream, she heard the same question: who drives the bus? Each time, she woke gasping. The question wasn't just haunting her. It was following her. She saw it in headlines she swore had changed when she refreshed the page. She heard it in hospital monitors that beeped a little too rhythmically. Once, she swore she heard it coming from the broken vending machine in the staff lounge, whispering from the coin slot. Her journal now had over 60 pages, drawings, timelines, maps, a growing web of every incident she could find connected to a 2:00 a.m. bus. Reddit threads, local legends, missing person reports that stopped precisely on street corners no real bus route passed through. She called the city transit department and asked about late-night service. "There's no service past midnight," the woman on the line told her flatly, "and never on East Hollow." Evelyn asked again. The woman sighed. "You're not the first to ask about that route, but it doesn't exist." When Evelyn asked who else had called, the line went dead. That evening she left the hospital early again. Fog had already begun to roll in before midnight. By the time she reached East Hollow, the street was completely empty. 1:45 a.m. She sat on the curb across from the place where the bus always appeared. The ground beneath her felt colder than the air, as if something was leaching warmth from the concrete. She waited. The fog thickened. The city went quiet again. No footsteps, no sirens, no dogs barking. Even her breath felt muted, like she was sinking underwater. 1:58 a.m. Her heart beat faster, then slower, then stopped for half a second. That was when she heard the sound again, a mechanical hum rising from nothing. Then came the pressure, as if something heavy and invisible moved through the air. The fog parted. The black bus emerged exactly on time. Its headlights were dimmer this time, flickering slightly as if struggling to stay lit. It stopped in the exact same spot. No tire marks, no skid, just stopped. The doors opened. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She stood up, brushed off her coat, and walked across the street. Her legs moved without protest. Her breath stayed calm. But every hair on her body stood on end. She stepped onto the first stair. The inside was colder than it should have been. Seats in perfect rows, lights humming above, that same low thrumming beneath the floor. Still no driver. She stepped in fully. The doors hissed shut behind her, and the engine began to hum louder. Not like a machine, not like a car. It sounded wet, like something organic. She walked slowly down the aisle. Every step made the floor vibrate faintly. The seats were clean, too clean, like they'd been scrubbed down with bleach and forgetting. And then the intercom crackled. Static at first, then a voice, male, calm. But it didn't come from the driver's seat. It came from nowhere and everywhere. "Welcome, Evelyn. You're right on time." She froze. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice quiet. Silence. Then the whisper, just behind her ear. "You already know." She turned. Nobody there. She walked toward the front, standing where a driver should be. There was no seat, no wheel, just a hollow, curved metal space that seemed deeper than it should be, as if it descended inside the bus like a well. The lights above her flickered. She leaned forward. It smelled like soil and blood. She knelt and saw stairs leading downward where the steering wheel should have been. Not normal stairs. They looked like old stone steps, slick and crumbling. The hum was louder now. She reached out just to see if the darkness below had form. Something reached back. Not a hand, a presence. It wasn't cold or warm. It was a feeling, a pull, like her thoughts were being unspooled, one memory at a time. She gasped and fell backward. The voice returned. "You're not ready to see the driver." The bus jerked forward. Not rolled, jerked, like something had tugged it by a string. Evelyn staggered into one of the seats. She grabbed the edge and held tight as the vehicle moved. The windows blurred. Outside, there were no streets, no lights, just fog rolling backward as if being peeled away. She looked around. Every seat was now filled. Men, women, children, all wide-eyed, all unmoving, none breathing, yet none dead. They all turned toward her at once. Their mouths moved, but the sound that came out was not human. It was the sound of brakes squealing in reverse. The bus stopped suddenly. The lights flickered once more, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. And then the real voice spoke, not from the intercom, from behind her. From beneath her, from inside her own skull. There is no driver, Evelyn. There is only the route. She screamed and woke up in her bed, soaked in sweat, shoes still on, bag still over her shoulder, the ticket in her pocket. Only this time, the ticket had changed. The time still read 2 a.m., but now it had a name printed on the bottom, Evelyn Harrow, and in tiny, pulsing red letters, barely visible under the ink. Your ride is approaching. The next morning, Evelyn didn't speak. She sat in her kitchen, a cup of black coffee growing cold in her hands, eyes fixed on the ticket she had laid flat on the table. Her name remained etched at the bottom, deep red, as though it had been stitched into the paper with thread instead of ink. It pulsed faintly in the early light, like something alive. Her fingers hovered over it and pulled away. She was afraid to touch it. The dream had felt too real. But had it been a dream? She remembered the faces. Dozens of them. Wide-eyed, unmoving, but not empty. She remembered the deep, wet voice, the absence of a driver. She remembered the steps where no steering wheel should have been, and one detail stuck in her mind like a splinter beneath the skin. One seat had always been empty. She had noticed it too late. Near the rear left side, every other seat was filled with a silent, staring figure. But that one seat, it remained vacant through the entire ride, waiting, calling. She got dressed without thinking and left the apartment just past noon. Sunlight seemed too bright, as if trying too hard to be real. The streets looked ordinary. People walked, cars passed, but she felt detached from it all, like watching a set built for a play. None of it felt solid anymore. Evelyn's first stop was the library. Not for books, for microfilm. She knew the bus wasn't new. The whispers, the vanished people, the way her name was now part of the ticket. It all pointed to something older than her, maybe older than the city itself. She searched for disappearances near East Hollow, going back decades. The pattern came slowly, like bones rising from dirt. 1954. A teenage girl, Mary Ellis, never arrived home from choir practice. Her last known location near East Hollow and Whitmore Street. 1972. A bus mechanic named Lewis Trent, last seen leaving a bar at 1:45 a.m. on foot. Witnesses said he was muttering about a black machine with no driver. 1996. A child named Aiden Ramirez disappeared on his way back from a friend's house. No trace ever found. A page from his sketchbook showed a large black rectangle with circles beneath it, and one empty window drawn in red, all of them gone at night, within blocks of East Hollow. Evelyn sat back, her heart hammering. The librarian glanced at her once, but said nothing. She left the building just before dusk. The sun was setting in long red streaks, staining the pavement like blood diluted by rain. Evelyn knew she wouldn't wait until 2 a.m. again. She needed to know now if it had been a dream, if the bus had really taken her somewhere, if the seat was still there, if it was still empty. She walked back to East Hollow, the fog beginning to stir early tonight. The buildings on either side looked skeletal in the dim light. Streetlights flickered ahead of her, synchronized like a countdown. She waited and waited, but the bus didn't come. Instead, something else did. A figure walked out from the fog, a woman, middle-aged, wearing a long brown coat soaked at the hem. Her face was pale, skin almost translucent, her eyes vacant but not blind. She stopped 5 feet from Evelyn and tilted her head. "You saw the seat, didn't you?" she asked, voice distant. Evelyn stared. "What?" "The empty one, always at the back left side. That seat's not for the living." "Who are you?" Evelyn asked quietly. "I got off," the woman whispered. "Long time ago, before it turned." Evelyn stepped closer. "What do you mean, turned?" The woman smiled, but it was the wrong kind of smile. Lips thin, teeth too straight, unblinking. "You can ride as long as you don't sit there. But if you sit, it doesn't stop at the end. It turns." Her voice cracked on a last word, like it hurt to say. Evelyn felt something cold grip her spine. "And then?" she asked. The woman didn't answer. She looked past Evelyn, eyes widening. "It's here." Evelyn turned. The fog had split in the middle of the street. The black bus waited in absolute silence. No engine sound, no headlights, just there. The woman backed away. "I shouldn't have stayed this long," she whispered. And then she was gone. Not walked away, just gone. Like the fog swallowed her whole. Evelyn didn't move. The doors opened. She stepped forward. Each breath felt like inhaling ice. Her boots hit the stairs in slow, steady rhythm. Inside, nothing had changed. Seats perfectly lined. That low hum vibrating through the floor. That scent of dust and metal and something deeper, something rotten beneath polish. She walked slowly toward the back. Each row was filled. Same passengers, unblinking, breathing without breath. She reached the seat, still empty, still waiting. Her knees buckled slightly as she stared at it. There was a name stitched into the fabric of the cushion, in tiny red thread, reserved. She sat across from it and waited. The bus didn't move. Nothing changed. Until she looked down and realized the ticket in her coat was gone. In its place, a folded note on her lap. She opened it. No handwriting. Point. Just a printed sentence. "You may look, but you may not sit." The lights flickered. The bus gave a sudden lurch, and Evelyn felt it in her bones. Something had turned. Not the road, not the wheels. Something inside the bus. The space itself. The rows seemed longer now. The ceiling slightly higher. The windows darker. And then she heard it, the sound of someone or something breathing beneath her seat. Wet, slow, hollow. She didn't move. She couldn't, because the empty seat across from her was no longer empty. Something sat there. She didn't look, but she felt it. It was warm, it was watching, and it was waiting for her to move. Evelyn didn't remember getting off the bus. She only remembered the silence. One moment she was staring at the seat across from her, now occupied by something she refused to look at. And the next, she was standing alone on East Hollow Street, fog swirling thick around her ankles, the scent of metal still clinging to her lungs. The bus was gone. No headlights in the dark, no rumbling engine, no closing hiss of doors, just a fading sense of pressure. Like a memory dissolving before it could be held, her hands trembled as she pulled her coat tighter. Her phone read 2:16 a.m., though she couldn't remember the bus ever moving. Her legs carried her home, but her mind stayed behind, replaying the moment that seat filled. She had not turned her head, she had not moved, but she had felt it, the weight, the warmth, the breath. And in her peripheral vision, the subtle twitch of fingers that were too long, too thin, as if they had been stitched together from different hands. Back in her apartment, Evelyn didn't sleep. The shadows in the corners felt thicker. Her windows seemed darker. She stared at her reflection in the microwave door for an hour before realizing she had been crying. When morning came, she didn't go to work. Instead, she walked, aimless. City blocks blurred. She didn't speak to anyone, and no one spoke to her. She tried to convince herself it was a dream or a hallucination. But when she reached into her coat pocket, she found the note again. "You may look, but you may not sit." Beneath those words, another line had appeared overnight. "Someone already has." She folded it carefully and put it back. The city seemed wrong in daylight. Too clean, too awake, like something pretending to be alive. She caught sight of her reflection in a shop window and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Pale skin, tired eyes, and a thin trickle of dried blood just beneath her left nostril. She wiped it away. That night, she returned to East Hollow Street, not because she wanted to, because she had to. The compulsion burned behind her eyes, coiling in her spine like a parasite. 1:59 a.m. The fog came faster now, swallowing lampposts, erasing footsteps. Her ears rang with a low tone that made her teeth ache. This time the bus didn't glide in from the shadows. It was just there, waiting. No movement, no sound, like it had always been part of the street. The doors opened. Inside, the lights flickered more violently. The air looked thicker, shimmering like heat waves, but the cold made her breath visible. She stepped in. The door closed behind her. She noticed it immediately. The seat, still empty, still waiting. The one across from it, also vacant. Whatever had been there the night before was gone, or hiding. The bus didn't move, not yet. She made her way down the aisle, fingers brushing the worn edges of the seats. Each passenger was frozen in the exact same pose as before, hands on laps. Heads tilted slightly, eyes wide open. As she passed, she realized something new. They were all crying. Tears ran silently down cheeks that didn't twitch. Some bled from the eyes, others wept black fluid. Their mouths twitched ever so slightly, like they wanted to scream, but didn't remember how. She reached the back and sat, but not in the cursed seat, diagonal from it, close enough to watch. A sound crept into the bus, a child humming, faint, off-key, coming from nowhere and everywhere. The bus jerked forward. The world outside changed. No longer streets or fog. Now glass. Miles of glass, reflecting the bus from every angle. The reflections moved half a second slower, as if remembering what the bus had done before it did. Evelyn didn't look away, because this time someone was in the window. She saw her, a girl, 8, maybe 9 years old, in the window's reflection, sitting in the empty seat. Pale, red coat, dark curls, and eyes, empty but locked on Evelyn. Then the girl raised one hand and waved, not a greeting, a goodbye. The bus lights pulsed violently. The hum turned to grinding. The passengers twitched. The floor beneath Evelyn's feet vibrated harder. Faster, then stopped completely. The bus was still again. Outside the windows, a street, not East Hollow. This one was different, older, cobblestone, lit by gas lamps. Figures walked slowly, their faces blurred, their arms jerking unnaturally with each step. The doors opened. No one got off, no one got on. But Evelyn saw her again, the girl, standing outside now on the sidewalk, staring. Then she stepped toward the door. Evelyn stood up. The girl raised her arm again, not waving this time, pointing right at her. Then the girl spoke. Her lips didn't move, but Evelyn heard it clearly. "You're the last stop." The door slammed shut. The bus reversed. No screeching tires, just time folding in reverse. Evelyn sat down hard, heart pounding, breath short. The girl was gone, but something had taken her seat. This time Evelyn looked. It was herself. Same coat, same hair, same tired eyes, but older, paler, and smiling. She reached out a hand, and Evelyn's reflection did the same. Their fingers never touched, but Evelyn felt cold flood her veins. And then everything went black. She woke up on her floor. The apartment smelled like burning paper. The ticket lay beside her. This time it was blank, except for one small, handwritten note across the back. She waved because she remembered you. The next morning, Evelyn stood barefoot in the middle of her kitchen, staring at the blank ticket. No time, no name, no message. Just a pale rectangle of old paper that smelled faintly of engine oil and wilted flowers. She had tried to burn it. She had tried to tear it. But every time she opened her hand, the ticket was whole again, sitting calmly in her palm like a patient invitation. The note from last night still echoed in her head. She waved because she remembered you. Remembered her? That girl in the red coat. That tiny wave from the reflection. Evelyn had never seen her before in her life. Or so she thought. But now her face haunted every blink. Every shadow twisted into that same silhouette. Every streetlight flickered in threes, the same rhythm as the wave. She called her mother, just to hear a voice that didn't come from inside a bus. But when her mother picked up, her voice was off, slightly delayed, like it had been recorded and played back through water. Evelyn, is everything, is everything, is everything. Evelyn hung up. She didn't try again. Instead, she grabbed her notebook and began writing. A map. She traced every street the bus had taken, or mote take. She marked places it had stopped. She made lists of passengers she had seen. The man with no eyes. The woman who wept ash. The child with no mouth who hummed without sound. She marked one spot in bold. Dead End Road. Not the metaphorical kind. There was a real street, just outside the industrial district, officially closed since 1991. Locals called it the place where roads go to die. It was a crumbling strip of concrete, overgrown with vines and surrounded by rusted fencing. Evelyn had only been there once, when she was a child. She didn't remember why, but now she remembered the color red and the sound of wheels on gravel. She left her apartment just before midnight. No destination, just the map, just a ticket in her coat pocket. The city felt wrong again. Streetlights blinked twice. Storefronts all reflected her face a second too late. Even the wind had stopped moving, like the world was holding its breath. She walked for hours. By the time she reached the edge of the industrial ruins, the fog was already waiting. It poured over the ground like a living thing, curling through the chain-link fence, wrapping itself around her ankles. The sound of the city faded behind her. Dead End Road was exactly as she remembered it. Broken pavement, fence posts twisted in strange angles. A sign that used to read, "Do not enter," now reads simply, "Enter." She stepped through, no headlights, no sound, until she reached the middle of the road and the ground began to shake. A low rumble, distant at first, then close. Wheels scraped over cracked pavement. No engine sound, just movement. The bus arrived slowly this time. No sudden appearance. It crept forward like an animal, metal sides groaning, windows too dark to see through. The air turned sour. The wind began to hum. The doors opened. Evelyn stepped inside. The lights flickered once, then stabilized. Every seat was full, even the cursed one. The girl in the red coat sat in it now. She turned her head slowly toward Evelyn and smiled. Evelyn took her seat across the aisle. No one else moved, except the girl. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out. A folded drawing. She handed it to Evelyn. Their fingers didn't touch, but cold leaked through the space between them. Evelyn unfolded it. A crayon sketch. Two girls, one older, one younger, holding hands. The older girl had dark hair. The younger wore red. The background was a bus, surrounded by shadows. On the back, a name written in a child's hand. Ellie and Rose. The air left Evelyn's lungs. Ellie, her nickname. Rose. Her sister. No, it wasn't possible. Rose had died when they were children. A car accident. That's what everyone said. But Evelyn remembered something else now. Fog, lights, an open door, a tiny hand slipping from hers, and wheels turning into the dark. The girl in the red coat smiled wider. She was still Rose, but something else now, too. Evelyn's voice shook. "Why now?" Rose leaned in slightly. Her mouth moved, but what came out wasn't a voice. It was a sound. A scream played backward. A bus horn from deep underwater. And then the passengers began to move. All at once, not smoothly, like puppets yanked by invisible strings. Their heads turned toward Evelyn. Their eyes opened wider than they should, and the bus began to drive. Not on the road, through it. The concrete split open, revealing a tunnel of broken teeth and rusted rebar. The bus descended without slowing. No one blinked. The walls outside melted into things that had no shape, just colors that didn't belong in this world. Evelyn held the drawing tighter. She turned to Rose. "You want me to remember," she whispered. Rose nodded once, and then her smile vanished. She pointed forward. The aisle stretched longer, farther, too far. At the end, a figure stood, tall, wrapped in robes of moving smoke. Its face was a blur of everyone Evelyn had seen on the bus. The voice that filled the bus was final, cold, ancient. "You are approaching the end of your route." The lights blew out. Total darkness. The only sound now was breathing. All around her, beneath her, inside her own chest. And a whisper she recognized. "You left me behind, but the road never forgets." Then silence, then stillness, and the feeling that the bus had stopped. But this time, there was no door to open, no street to return to, only the question, still echoing from the dark. Where will you go when there is nowhere left? Evelyn stood alone in the dark. The bus was no longer moving. No rumble beneath her feet, no flicker of fluorescent lights, no whispering from the walls, just stillness so complete that it pressed against her skin like a second atmosphere. She held the drawing tighter, Ellie and Rose, crayon smiles, a childhood forgotten, a past buried beneath lies. She had let go of that hand once. She didn't remember doing it, but something inside her did. Something that had woken up the moment she first stepped on the bus. Now it was wide awake. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper again. But the drawing was gone. In its place, a ticket. Not the blank one from before. This one was black, edged in red. The paper pulsed with faint warmth, like it had been held too long in someone else's hands. Her name was printed across the top, Evelyn Harrow. Beneath it, a new destination, final transfer. She blinked. A sound cracked through the silence, not loud, but wrong, like wood bending beneath pressure, followed by a slow, wet, dragging sound from the far end of the bus. She turned slowly. There, where the aisle vanished into black, something was crawling toward her. A figure, not quite human. Its limbs were too long, arms bending the wrong way. Skin pale and stretched, like parchment soaked in oil. It didn't walk. It slithered on its hands, bones grinding against the floor, nails clicking with every inch. And its face, it had no face, just a surface of skin stretched smooth. except for the mouth. Wide, open, grinning. No eyes, no nose, only that mouth. And from it came the sound, not a voice, not even breath, but the hiss of paper catching fire. Evelyn stepped back. The figure dragged closer. One hand reached toward her, palm open. It wanted the ticket. She held it tighter. The bus lights flickered once. For a moment, she saw the other passengers again. But they weren't seated anymore. They were standing, all of them, heads tilted, mouths open in silent screams, their bodies contorted like marionettes with snapped strings. One by one, they began to burn. No flames, just glowing cracks spreading across their flesh like fault lines. They didn't scream. They didn't move. They only stared at her as they turned to ash. The air grew thick with heat, but Evelyn felt nothing. Only the paper in her hand grew hotter. The black ticket curled at the edges, then flared with red. She dropped it. It hovered in the air. Didn't fall, didn't float, just hung there, pulsing. The faceless thing reached for it. Its fingers touched the edge, and the ticket erupted into flame. The entire bus shuddered. Metal groaned. Windows shattered inward, not with sound, but with silence. A vacuum pulled outward, yet Evelyn stood firm, because she remembered something. Not a moment, not a place, but a name. Rose. The girl in the red coat had not screamed. She had smiled, not in malice, but in forgiveness. Evelyn stepped forward and grabbed the faceless thing by the wrist. Its skin was cold and wet and slick with something thick. "You can't have it," she whispered. The thing hissed. Its mouth moved, but Evelyn heard her own voice echo back. "You left her." "You forgot." "I didn't forget," she said through clenched teeth. "I was made to." The air cracked. All around her, the walls of the bus peeled back, not like doors, but like flesh, revealing a sky of black glass. Reflections of every Evelyn that had ever existed danced across the void. Some screaming, some crying, some already burned. She pulled the creature closer. "You don't control the route," she said. The thing thrashed, but Evelyn's hands held tight, and from behind her, a small voice. "Ellie," she turned. Rose stood at the far end of the bus, still 8 years old, still in the red coat, still smiling. But her eyes, now full of light, not the light of this world, something older, something kind. Rose reached out. Evelyn let go of the creature. It dissolved into ash before hitting the ground. The burning ticket crumbled mid-air, its embers forming symbols Evelyn couldn't read. The bus began to hum again. Not broken this time, not cold, warm, alive. It moved forward, gently. Outside the windows, trees, real trees, wind through leaves. A road beneath wheels, a road that ended but didn't fall. Evelyn walked to her sister and knelt down. She didn't speak, neither did Rose. They simply held hands. The lights on the bus dimmed, one by one, not failing, resting. And from far ahead, a sound, a station bell, old, rusted, familiar. The bus came to a smooth stop. The doors opened. For the first time, daylight poured in. But Evelyn did not step out. Not yet. She turned. Every seat was empty, every figure gone. Only her and Rose, and the soft sound of the world remembering how to breathe. She stood slowly, helping her sister to her feet. They walked down the aisle together. No whispers, no screams, just the quiet hum of return. As they stepped off the bus, the metal groaned behind them, exhaling. The doors closed. The bus did not vanish. It simply drove on, down a road that no longer ended. And Evelyn finally let go. Evelyn awoke in her own bed. The light streaming through the window was soft and gold. Morning. Birds chirped outside. The sound was so ordinary, it made her eyes well up with tears. For the first time in weeks, maybe longer, the world felt real. Her hands were steady, her skin warm. No fog lingered in the air. No whispers clung to the walls. But she didn't trust it. She sat up slowly, testing the air like prey in a silent forest. Nothing moved. No bus engine humming behind her thoughts. No static in the corners of her hearing. Just the creak of wood under her feet as she stepped onto the floor. She walked to the bathroom. The mirror greeted her with her own face, unmarked, almost peaceful. But as she leaned closer, she noticed something. A tiny handprint, faint, the size of a child's, pressed against the glass from the inside. She didn't scream. She didn't even move. She reached out and touched it. Cold seeped into her fingertips, not sharp, but familiar. And then a voice, low, breathless. "You got off, but the road keeps going." Evelyn spun. No one behind her, but the mirror was no longer reflecting her. It showed a bus, empty, rolling through a long, endless tunnel lined with rusted glass. In the rearview mirror, above the driver's seat, she saw faces. Seen. Dozens, hundreds, all of them whispering. Their mouths didn't move, but the words slid across the surface like breath on ice. "We remember you. You left the seat empty. She took your place." Evelyn reached up and smashed the mirror with her fist. Glass cracked. The reflection blinked out. She bled, just a little, enough to feel alive again. But her heart wouldn't stop pounding. The peace she'd felt wasn't real. It was a lull, a pause between stops. She knew now. The bus wasn't just a machine. It was a system, a network, a route. And even if she got off, others were still on it, still riding, still remembering her. That night she couldn't sleep, not because she was afraid, because she heard it again, soft, distant, a crackling voice through static, like a radio left on too long. From the corner of her apartment, where no speakers existed, a low, rattling voice said her name, Evelyn. She turned slowly. There was no one, but the wall shimmered. She pressed her ear against it. Whispers, not English, not words, but thoughts, bleeding through, and behind them, the sound of brakes, long, metallic. Screaming. The bus was still running, still looking, still waiting. She backed away and called the only person who might understand, Mrs. Beckett. The old woman who had stopped her on East Hollow, The one who had said, "I got off." It took hours to track her down. She wasn't in the phone book, but Evelyn remembered the look in her eyes, that haunted glaze of someone who'd seen the route bend. She found her address through an old property record. An apartment above a boarded-up convenience store. The stairs creaked with every step. The hallway buzzed like bad wiring. Evelyn knocked on the door 3 times. No answer. She tried again. Then, slowly, it opened on its own. The apartment was dark. Dust hung in the air like smoke. Every surface covered in papers, drawings, maps, newspaper clippings, symbols etched in charcoal on the walls, circles, always circles, intersected by broken lines. In the center of the room, a single armchair faced the wall. A tape recorder sat on the table beside it, and in the chair, Mrs. Beckett, eyes open, but glassy, not dead, not alive, breathing, shallow and mechanical. Evelyn moved closer. The tape recorder clicked, then played. Mrs. Beckett's voice filled the air, faint, tired. "If you're hearing, miss, you saw it too. The bus, the seat, the thing in the aisle. I tried to forget. I burned the tickets. I traced the route in my dreams, but the mirrors always remember." That's how it speaks to us, through the reflections, through the corners of our vision. Click. They're not passengers. They're memories. Pieces of us we leave behind when we lie to ourselves. Every time we forget, one of them boards the bus. Every time we pretend, another seat fills. Click. It's not a vehicle. It's a confession. The tape ended. Mrs. Beckett blinked once, then whispered, "It knows you're listening." Evelyn turned. The mirror above the kitchen sink cracked. From inside the reflection, a bus passed by slowly, and in the rearview mirror, she saw herself, only not quite. This Evelyn was smiling, wide and broken. And in her lap, the burned remains of the black ticket. Evelyn ran. She didn't remember the stairs, only the feeling of being watched by her own shadow. She didn't stop running until she reached her apartment again, where the bathroom mirror was whole, untouched, but taped to the center. A new ticket. No time, no name, only 2 words. Next stop. And beneath them, faint and smeared, "You're already on board." The clock struck 2:00 a.m., and this time Evelyn didn't wait for the bus. It was already there, parked directly outside her apartment building. No headlights, no engine rumble, just stillness and silence, so heavy it pressed against her windows like a breath trying to seep in. She didn't dress, didn't prepare. She was already wearing what she'd worn in her dreams, in the memories, in the burning loops of her own fractured reality. The city outside was wrong. Every light flickered in the same rhythm. Every sound, dogs, wind, distant tires, was gone. Even the sky above her looked like paper soaked in black ink. Wet and wrinkled, ready to tear, she stepped outside barefoot. The sidewalk was warm, not from the air, from something underneath. The door of the bus opened before she even reached the curb. No hiss this time, no announcement, just a hollow opening, wide like a yawn at the edge of the world. She climbed the steps, Her feet stuck slightly with every step. She didn't look down. She didn't have to. She knew it wasn't metal anymore. It was skin. Inside, the bus was full. But not with passengers, not entirely. Each seat held a person-shaped impression, like someone had once sat there and been erased. Their faces hovered faintly like afterimages, flickering ghosts of breath, frozen in place, and all of them turned to her as one. Eyes that weren't eyes, more like windows, round and endless and black. Evelyn moved down the aisle slowly. The hum of the vehicle was no longer mechanical. It sounded like breathing, deep, rhythmic, tired. The kind of breath something takes when it's been waiting for too long. She passed by faces she recognized, the boy who had whispered his own name before vanishing, the old woman who told her to run, the version of herself in the rear-view mirror, and then Rose, still a child, still in the red coat, but now sitting in a different seat, the last one. Not the cursed one near the back. That one was gone, ricked out, as if the bus had grown tired of it. Now only one seat remained empty, the very front. Evelyn walked toward it. The windshield of the bus was no longer glass. It showed nothing outside, only inside. An endless stretch of road made from memory, from every decision she had never made, from every lie she had ever told herself. From every night she whispered, "I'm fine," while shaking under the weight of guilt she couldn't name. The seat waited, worn, threadbare, woven with strands of hair. She sat. The bus didn't move, but everything else did. The passengers turned inward. Their eyes melted, not with heat, but with recognition. They saw her, truly, and Evelyn saw herself, every version, every fragment, one crying, one laughing, one screaming until her throat split open, and one watching, smiling, silent. The bus spoke, not in words, in sound. A low, cracking groan from deep beneath the floor. Bones shifting. Metal sighing. And then a voice, old, genderless, stretched across time. "You are the last stop." She leaned back into the seat. "I know." The lights dimmed. Not flickering this time, but settling. Only a face, Evelyn's, only older, wiser, worn. The reflection blinked slowly, then smiled, and whispered, "Thank you for returning." The wheels beneath the bus began to move, not rolling, sliding. The walls peeled away, the roof dissolved, the windows melted, and yet Evelyn sat still, surrounded by stars that whispered her name like a lullaby. No longer haunted, no longer lost, just part of the route now. One breath among many. The bus vanished, but the road remained, stretching on. Longer than memory, deeper than guilt, and completely, utterly silent. Because Evelyn Harrow had arrived, and there was no one left to wait. There was no return, no street beneath her feet, no sky above, only the hush of a world turned inside out, where sound fell upward and time bled sideways through memory. Evelyn was no longer seated. Yet she never stood. She was not moving, yet the world shifted around her, like fog recoiling from heat. She had reached the last stop, but the route had not ended. It had folded, and now Evelyn walked inside it. A corridor stretched ahead, lined with glass on both sides. Not mirrors, not windows, just reflections, frozen in their own rules. Some moved when she didn't. Some blinked too late. Some bled quietly down their necks and smiled through the pain. Each one is her. Versions of Evelyn carved from forgotten choices. The one who never stepped onto East Hollow Street. The one who screamed and kept running. The one who sat in the empty seat. They watched her with hollow eyes, not in judgment, but in expectation, as if waiting to see which version she would choose to become. At the end of the corridor was a door, a bus door, not part of a vehicle, just freestanding in the dark. It hissed open without touch. Inside was the bus, the first bus, the one from the beginning. Every detail exactly as she remembered from the night Thomas disappeared, the night she told herself he never existed. But this time, someone was in the driver's seat, a figure cloaked in threadbare fabric, skin tight and waxy, with hands fused to the wheel. The engine growled, the lights buzzed, and Evelyn saw herself sitting halfway down the aisle, a younger Evelyn, wide-eyed, terrified, still whole, still running. This Evelyn didn't see her. She stared at the front, at the driver, at Evelyn, because now she understood. She had become the driver. The route was not just a journey. It was a role, a cycle. Someone always had to steer the silence. Someone had to carry the forgotten, the broken, the ones who lied to themselves just enough to get through the day. Evelyn stepped forward and sat behind her younger self, watched the trembling of her shoulders, listened to the faintest whisper escaping her lips. Please, stop. The bus did not stop. Not then, not now, because the route continued. It had to. She reached for the younger Evelyn's shoulder, but her hand passed through. A memory already carved in stone. She had seen herself on the bus because she had always been there, watching, waiting, driving. Outside the windows, the world had unraveled, not in flames, but in threads, pulled apart like fabric too worn to hold shape. The streets dissolved into fog. The buildings sank into the earth. All that remained was the route and those who rode it. A sound broke the silence. Not metal, not breath. A knock from the door. The bus had stopped, and someone was waiting to board. She stood, stepped toward the front. The door opened. A man stood in the fog, eyes wide, holding a paper ticket between trembling fingers. "Am I too late?" he asked. She looked at him, recognized him. A man she'd seen once in the hospital. The one who died, saying, "Don't get on." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She stepped aside. He climbed the steps, and behind him, dozens more, eyes vacant, hands clutching broken memories. She watched them find their seats, familiar faces, new ones, some already flickering, some still solid, one seat always empty, waiting. She sat down again. The driver's hands released the wheel, because now they were hers. She didn't need instructions. She knew the road, the turns, the silences, the stops that weren't places, but confessions. She knew the voice of the bus, not mechanical, not human, just old and tired and bound to her now. The route never ended because people never stopped forgetting. And so she drove into the dark, through the smoke, past the reflections, her face caught in the rear-view mirror, smiling just a little. The road ahead was empty, but the seats behind her were always full.